Alright, in this video, we're going to recap. You'll be able to deal with quotations and strings. You'll be able to use triple quotes. You'll be able to use string index to produce a result you desire. You'll be able to have the computer count the number of spaces in a string. You'll be able to print out a certain length in your string. You'll be able to print out the last character in your string. And we're also going to do a project together in class. Alright, so dealing with quotations and strings, it's best to use double quotes at the beginning and the end of each string because sometimes we want to include apostrophes in our strings. For example, here are two mini programs. The first illustrates the use of single apostrophes. So this is a little bit of a recap. I think we talked already a little bit about this in the first class, but just to make sure, because review is always nice. Course equals Python for beginners. There we go. Print. So when we run, always want to make sure you run on the right file. It says Python for beginners. Close to it, I forgot the double N. Oh, you get the idea. And the output would be. So now if you could use the single ones, you could use the double ones. Still will work. I like using doubles so you could incorporate singles in for when you need singles in your strings. Why don't you try number 1 in your notes. And then we'll talk about triple quotes in a second. And the other idea is, what if you want your output to kind of look more like an email, where you're using a whole bunch of lines? To do that, let's do a little file, new, Python file. Let's call this email.py. To make it look a little bit more like an email, you could use actually triple quotes. So let's say course equals 1, 2, 3. You want to make print out a whole big paragraph as far as information. Like, hi John, I would like to pass your course. I heard it is very challenging. Here is my first email to you. Sincerely, Jake. So you have like a little email here. Now, to get that all printed out, we print on the course. Let's see what the result is. So you run. Look at that. Prints it out kind of like an email here. Hi John, I would like to pass your course. I heard it was very challenging. Here's my first email to you. Sincerely, Jake. Make it a little bit tighter. There you go. So you could print out a whole bunch of sentences using triple quotes also. And those are best used for when you have long quotes. I want you to do examples 2 in your notes. Alright, next we're going to be talking about is the string index. So let's do file, right click on the new Python file. Let's call this index.py. And in this index, let's do a string equals, say, pizza. Now an index, what exactly is that? So I'm just going to do, hashtag. For Python, hashtag index is stored as. Okay, so with an index is each one of these letters of the string is stored in an index. The first letter in the string is considered to be 0 in the index. So the 0 number is P. It's like mini little files. So each one of this P is in a mini file, I is in a mini file, Z is another mini file, the other second Z is another little mini file, and A is the last little mini file. Unfortunately, these files, they start not at 1, but they start at 0. That's just something you just get used to along the way. So in other words, the first index is actually I, which is the second letter in our string. The 0 index is the first letter, P. Then the second one in the index is the letter Z. The third letter in our index is also the letter Z. The fourth letter in the index is A. So it starts off, it goes 0 to 4. So when you have 5 letters, it's going to be really 0 to 4. So let's say you want to print the first letter in your string. The reason why I said string here is because that's the variable. That matches up right there. This little 0 says is the index number. That's the number that I'm putting in. If I want to print that out, you're going to see run index. The first letter that comes out is P, because that's the first letter in our index, which is really 0, the number 0. Cool. Now if I wanted to do, let's say, the fourth one in our index, our output should be A. So we type in 4, we run it, the output is A. So we're looking good. Why don't you guys do example 3 and example 4 in your notes? Alright, next we're going to want to print out a certain length. So far we've only really just been printing out one little letter at a time on the printout console or the Python console. Next we're going to print out a whole certain length, a particular length of the string that you would like. So let's say you do a new file, and we're going to call that new file certain_length.py. And in this file, let's type in a variable, once again, course equals. This is the second mini program. Pardon. Let's actually type in hello, my name is Brian. Now let's say we want to print out not just the letter H or the letter O or the letter E. We want to print out one of those words. So we go to the variable course that we labeled it as. We do the bracket 0 to, let's say, 5. So what is that going to print out? Well, that's going to print out H for the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So that's going to be HELLO. Now it's not going to count the space, because this number is always going to be 1 bigger. So it's 1 more than you want. So let's run this first. So let's say file, run, and we do index. Sorry. Run certain length. We got HELLO. Hello. So that's 5, 6, 7. So let's say we want to go all the way to the 7th. Now the 7th, that's not going to include this little y. It's going to say hello and then space and then the M, because spaces do get counted. So it says hello M. So if I wanted to include that y, I would have to go 1 more and type in 8 to include it. Hello my. So we got to be careful. So the first one number here in this little index tells us where we're going to start at, and the second number is always 1 more than what you actually want. So if you wanted the first 7 letters in your string, you go 0.8. If you wanted 10 letters, the first 10 letters of your string, you go 0.11. And that's how you print out a certain length in your string. Why don't you try numbers example 7 and 8? Now we also could get fancy. We could print out the last character in a string. So let's keep that same little string there. we're going to change it up. We notice that we use positive numbers or positive integers starting at 0 to go from left to right on a string. Let's say if we want to print out the last character in a string, we can actually type in -1. So from the other side, 1 to the other side, when we run that, we got n. That's the last one. Now let's say if I wanted -5. Well, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. A B result should be printed out. And look at that, the B is printed out. So you can actually work backwards in a string too if you want. So if anything requires you to work backwards, you know how to do it. So why don't you do examples 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 13 and 14. Alright. So there's little small little details that pop up along the way. Let's say you accidentally forget to put the number in 0. Python's smart enough to realize, okay, if you forget to put in that 0, not the end of the world. It's going to assume that it's 0. So 0 to 3, so that'd be HEL, the first 3 letters. Now, also, if you want to do the first 20 letters, or I should say the first 19, but I'm going to type in the number 20. The first 19 letters will appear. If, let's say we want to go the other way, and we want to actually say, oh, I'm not going to print out. I'm not going to type in any numbers, indication of where we want to start and begin and where to end. The program's going to print out entire everything. That's when we do a little double dot. If you wanted to print out the entire string to the 5th to last letter, you could do 0 double dot -5. That means it's chopping off the last 5 letters. If you want to chop off the last 2 letters, you could go 0 double dot -2. That'll print out the entire string except the last 2 letters. And let's see if we